Hello, my name is Mr. Charles, and this is the Upbeat Academy online lessons. This week we're going to be discussing mixing, and this is going to be these are going to be abbreviated tutorials, honestly, because I don't want you to get caught in the weeds with this. Audio engineering and mixing and mastering is something that is a very in-depth process. We could do a completely different tutorial series on this topic where we only talk about mixing. But what I want to help you do is for you to be able to bring your instrumentals to a place where you're able to marry the sounds that you have, the frequencies that they lay in, and also be able to deliver something that knocks. Because at the end of the day, if your drums don't sound good, your bass is flat, all this other stuff, you're gonna be really upset and say, oh, why doesn't my beat sound right? And it's like, well, if you don't have sounds that are EQ'd properly or compressed and all these buzzwords that you hear, you're gonna have stuff that doesn't really fit well. So what I want to do today is I want to make something very quickly. We're gonna spend probably about 5 minutes or so to 10 minutes creating something, and then we're going to spend the remaining 10 to 15 minutes mixing it, adding certain sounds, and then breaking it down. We're going to have a guest lecturer the next lesson, so I will continue this lesson. Part 2 on the lesson after that, I'm also going to be starting to include certain stylistic tips here and there, 5 minutes videos that follow this example. So let's begin. And I'm going to use some stuff from this sample pack right here. Let's actually get out of this. Let's use some stuff that's from some sample free packs. Let's see what we got in here. And I'm going to do something that's in my style. I'm going to call this like hybrid hip hop. So we're going to do just 86 beats per minute. Let's see what we call this. Let's see if we can find some progressions. Okay, here we go. I'm going to use this. And then I'm going to find something else that's in a similar. So I'm going to build a nice little sample. So I'm only building from loops today because I want to explain how I'm getting to my process. So let's find my bass. Let's do a bass from here. Okay. Okay, and now I'm going to do a drum rack. And I'm just doing this very simply. We're just working through this very simply, right? So and put together this drum rack. And if you notice, the first thing I'm doing right now is I'm just turning the volume down on certain instrumental sections to help blend my sounds together better. Don't actually care for that bass. I don't think it fits well, so we're going to play our bass out. Right now I'm trying to find the right snare. Maybe something like this. Okay, so now I'm gonna draw in my drums really quickly, and we're gonna get to mixing after this. So what I want to do is put this in 16th notes. I'm putting this 8th notes, drawing this in, and because of the style I do, I like to swing my hats, so I drag them off the grid. And then I'm putting my snares, the 2 and the 4. This is a simple beat. I'm not making something that is super complex. Certain things are off, so I'm just drag. Alright. So triplet. Drag these kicks a little bit. Now I'm gonna just duplicate this loop, make this 4 bars. I'm just gonna add, and now I'm gonna add in some random kicks, just kind of give it a little bit of body. So let's put this. Scoot some stuff up, scoot some stuff back. Take out kicks, take out some hats. Let's take some of these out. And let that ride. Okay, there we go. now let's begin the fun part. So, effects. Let's spice this up a little bit. So, our basic sounds we have in there, we have a piano. I added some horns. This is a saxophone solo. And then I have my drums, right? So one thing we can do to keys is we can go into our audio effects and we can add this nice chorus effect. And the chorus effect is like a delay. It moves the things, it gives them a little, it spaces your keys out a little bit. So notice with it, I'm just gonna turn it up. Listen to how it changes. And then what we're gonna do is this thing called sidechain compression. Sidechain compression is something that you can use in all genres of music. It's mainly used in house music where you have that four on the floor, that doom doom, that thumping, right? What you want to do is you want to separate this. So we choose a compressor, and we'll have a little bit more of a conversation on what a compressor is. I'm going to do a separate video specifically on a compression just so that you can have a little bit more of an idea. We want to have an understanding of the tools we're using, but also we want to basically have a little bit more fun going through it. So let's just go through this and see what we can do, and then we'll have a more in-depth conversation. If you're interested in this, just send us an email and we'll go into this really in depth. So to get this pumping effect, what we want to do is we want to choose a compressor. So we go into audio effects, choose a compressor. We also have the glue compressor. You can do this on the glue compressor. You can also do this with a filter. But there's an arrow here. Click on the arrow. There's a sidechain function. Click sidechain. Audio input. What's happening is it is reading the audio input from another device and it is activating the compressor. So if I choose this drum, what I want to do is first I want to choose where my drums are, then I want to choose the kick drum. See how it says kick drum? I want to do post mixer. So after all the effects I do to the kick drum, it happens. And you see the threshold now is coming from that kick drum. Do, 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 right? So now if I bring this threshold down, listen how the channel changes. So it's ducking under the kick drum. And I can see how, by changing the release, the higher release, the longer it takes for it to reset to 0. The shorter the release, the faster, right? So what I want to do is I want to kind of put this somewhere to taste. I'm going to put it around 370 so that the kick, and then listen how they sound now. If you notice though, if I turn this down a little bit, it brings that kick out a little bit more. So what I want to do is I want to actually boost this volume a little bit. Thing I want to add to these keys, and I'm using stuff that's only in Ableton Light and Standard, right? So I don't want to use anything that's too advanced or that you don't have access to, so I'm just using stock Ableton sounds. So one thing I'm going to do now is I'm going to add on this reverb. And reverb is a great audio effect where we can simulate spaces, like the space inside of a cathedral or the space inside of your room. What happens is if you're in a environment, the sound is going to reverberate off of surfaces, right? So the surfaces that are in the computer are artificial, and we have the ability to create and use the computer's reverb, or mainly Ableton's reverb, to create an artificial space. So you like using this on sounds like pads and keys because it gives it more of like this spacey feel. Get it? Now I'm gonna turn my drums down a little bit. And what we want to do is, for these horns, I'm actually going to drown them in reverb. And what that means is the wet signal, if you see this knob here, the wet signal, I'm going to turn it all the way up. Listen how the horns sound now. Yeah. So now it sounds like the horns are inside of like a can. If I turn this to K time up, I've obviously sidechain these as well. So I'm going to sidechain this as well. And then let's turn this back on. Alright, so you hear how my kick has this like a little bit of like this like tail sound. What I want to do is I want to use this filter button. And I'm just going to roll that off a tiny bit. Okay, so closing on that finish. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to add in a bass. And what I'm going to do is I'm just choose a sampler and I'm going to drop a bass note in. So let's find a bass sound. Type in a bass. Alright, so I'm going to filter this bass out. And I'm going to play this now. So let's get this. So to give my bass a little bit of body, this is one last thing, put on this saturator. And what this saturator does is it grabs those low frequencies. Listen to this, put on bass, that's the high, it's overdriving the high. turn the bass all the way down and it's filtered, it grabs that low, so it gives it that more of that body, right? So watch. See how fat the bass is now? There's one last thing I want to do is on these hi-hats. What we want to do with the hi-hats is we want to actually mess around with the velocity. So what I'm doing right now is Command Shift, and I'm grabbing every other hi-hat that I have in here, even ones that I have turned off, and I'm going to change the velocity of these hi-hats. So I want some of these hi-hats to be quieter, so I'm just turning these down. So you hear how it's going like this now? So remember, if you're doing like trap music or anything like that, it works to use this trick as well because it gives it a little bit more body and a little bit more humanized feel. So finally what I want to do is, and this is the basic, the 101. Look, I have everything turned down to a certain point. So my master, so if I give this to somebody and say, hey, I'm mixed this to a point and I want this to be louder, but I don't want it to peak, I can do a couple of things. I can drop a limiter on it, and this is 101. And then I want this to get to 0. I have this 10. I'm going to set the ceiling to 0. And then I'm going to boost the gain of the master. To make sure it's not having an issue, we look at this here, because if we jack this up, it's going to show us how much it's getting compressed and squashed down to make that sound, right? So we don't want it to get squashed. That's why we want to make sure we're starting off from a point of -12 so that when we boost this up and it's loud enough for us, wonderful. This is a simple loop. We can hear it. The snare smacks through. We can hear the hi-hat. We want to make sure that we can hear everything that's going on in the mix, right? We want to hear. I hear the keys still. I hear this horn. I can hear my kick drum. I can feel my kick drum. I can hear my snare and my hi-hat. How that sounds, right? Now we're gonna go into more complex mixing on Friday. This is just the basic. Okay, I'm Mr. Charles. I've made these instrumentals and I want them to sound decent. You know, we're not going for professional yet. We're going for a beginner. I'm a veteran producer. So I want you to stay upbeat. I want you to stay yourself. Be well.